Hi there, 5th grade. So this afternoon we're going to move on to the next lesson in our long division by two-digit divisor chapter. We're going to focus on dividing larger numbers by two-digit divisors. The goal ultimately is to make connections with what we learned when we were learning how to divide smaller numbers by two-digit divisors, and the other objective for today is to actually practice dividing those larger numbers by a two-digit divisor. You need to make sure you have your journal out so you can do a couple of problems in your journal. So make sure you have it out, make sure you have a pencil, and you're ready to go. All right, friends, the first example that we're going to look at is the following word problem. A large city has a total of 22,500 students that ride buses to school. There are 75 different schools. How many students get dropped off at each school if an equal number of students get dropped off? So it's saying the same amount of kids get dropped off at each of the 75 different schools. So let's set up our problem. You guys can be setting this up in your journal and solving this one together. The next one you'll be solving completely on your own, and then I'm going to link you to a website to do a little bit of practice. So we have 22,500 divided by 75. Following the same procedures we've followed when we learned to place our first digit, we look at how many times does 75 go into 2. It doesn't, so we cross it off. Then we go and look at our two columns, the first two columns of our dividend together. How many times can 75 fit into 22? Again, it doesn't fit in, so we want to place an X and say we cannot go into that column. Lastly, we would move over one final time and say, okay, now 75 is smaller than 225, so how many times does it go in? 75 goes into 225. I'd say probably 3 times. I may need to do a little bit of guess and check to check my work. So 75 times 3, 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 is 22. So that's perfect. So 75 goes into 225 3 times. 225 minus 225 is 0. Bring down my 0. 75 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 75 is 0. Subtract 0. Bring down. I'm going to do the same thing here. 75 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 75 is 0. Subtract. Ran out of room, but I have nothing left over. So this is telling me that 300 students get dropped off at each of the 75 schools. So friends, what you noticed there, the connections that I want you to make, is really the idea of placing the first digit. We've spent a lot of time talking about comparing your divisor, your two-digit divisor, with each of the columns within your dividend. Start at the smallest column. If it doesn't fit, you place your X. Then you look at 2 columns. If it still doesn't fit, you place an X, and then you look at 3 columns, which is exactly what we did. So I want you to make that connection, friends, between the last chapter and this chapter. We're going to move on, and you guys are going to do an example of your own. The video is going to pause to give you some time to solve and insert your answer. So remember those concepts that we've talked about in the past. Placing your first digit. If you have to place a 0 into your quotient, make sure you're actually doing the round of multiplication and really just following all the standard steps we've been talking about for the last few weeks. All right, friends, example number 2 that you're going to work out in your journal is definitely a challenging problem. So it's the problem, I want you to do 2 steps here. I want you to first estimate the quotient of 46,534 divided by 152. Remember, friends, our process here, look for compatible numbers, cross off any common zeros, and then divide using your base facts. So you guys know this at this point. And then the second part of the problem, I want you to actually divide and find the exact answer. I'll get you started and give you a little bit of a hint here, friends, that 152 does not go into 4. 152 does not go into 140 or 465. Now your challenge would be to say, okay, in my head, about how many times do I think 152 can go into 465 without going over? So you may have to do a little bit of guess and check. So you may have to multiply 152 times 3. 152 times 4, and see how close you can get without going over. Again, long division, when you're dividing by much larger numbers, it's a little bit more of a guess and check kind of process, and you really have to take your time and work through it. So in your journal, I want you to take your time, complete your work. You're going to show it to me tomorrow in class. When you're finished, Edpuzzle will ask you to submit your answers, and then I'm going to link you to a fun website to do a little bit of practice. All right, my friends, hopefully you had a minute to solve the problem on the previous page. You should have entered your estimated quotient and your exact quotient. We will get together and talk about the process tomorrow in small groups, but hopefully you got a little bit of a chance for practice. The additional practice that you're going to do tonight for homework is to go onto IXL.com and do a little bit of additional practice. I have a new username and password, which are listed below. Please remember that once you go to the website that you log in with that username and password, or you're only going to be able to complete a few practice problems, go to the 5th grade math tab and you can work through activities D13 and D14. 15 to 20 minutes of additional practice should be a good chance to kind of cement the process for you and make sure you're feeling comfortable with it. So good luck with your homework, and tomorrow we'll get together and work in small groups to make sure we're totally comfortable with the concept. Have a good night. Bye.